Well, welcome everyone. And this is Spiritual Technologies 2.0 Live. And we're excited to be back. And my name is John Dupuy, and I am the, among other things, the CEO of Unyte Technologies. And we have Doug Prater, who is my co-producer and co-anchor here on Spiritual Technologies Talks. And today we have with us Jason Tafler, live from Toronto, Canada. Woo! Yay, Canada! And I'm coming to you from deep, darkest southern Utah in the wilderness. And Doug is somewhere in the Carolinas. We're not really sure where. So Jason Tafler has been interested in health and in body's natural healing processes for as long as he can remember. He always knew he wanted to make a difference in the field of health and wellness. What he didn't know was the path life would take him to get there. Last year, Jason was rushed to a hospital with a serious health condition. In the thick of being treated for life-threatening internal bleeding, he realized the only thing he cared about was living to see his wife and his son again. That time, Jason was the chief digital officer at Rogers Communications, a $30 billion Canadian telecom company. He also ran an ad tech company in the U.S. called Point Roll that had scaled at over 100 million in revenue. But this focus on achievement and work, putting in 70 to 80 hours of work a week for 2 decades, had taken its toll. He knew it was time to make a lifestyle change. From his hospital bed, Jason began to meditate daily. He credits many factors to his recovery, but he feels that daily meditation was an incredibly important element of his healing process. He decided he wanted to share what he had learned. So he founded Unyte and acquired meditation technology from a company called Wild Divine to bring his vision to life. Renamed Unyte, Interactive Meditation is a relaxation program that uses breathing techniques, immersive experiences, real-time feedback, and most recently VR to help you gain more awareness of your thoughts, feelings, emotions, and physical state. So welcome, Jason.
Thank you very much. Excited to be here.
So, well, we kind of got the backstory of why you started to do this, and I'll say that I used Wild Divine, years ago, 12, 15 years ago, and it was an amazing advance in technology, and we had an ongoing meditation group here, and a lot of times the people who were considered to be the best meditators were the ones that couldn't make anything wiggle or move. It was quite clarifying and really beautiful. There it is. That's the original box set. That's going to be a very valuable antique or a relic of this time someday. So keep that, Pam. And so from there, what's going on now?
Well, yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's been an exciting journey. And just first off, I think for me, what I realized through that awakening of that near-death experience, and I had tried on and off to meditate, since I was a teenager, and I was always kind of interested in health and natural health. And through a series of different life events, including my own health challenges, I felt like I finally had the catalyst to actually really be able to actually do it. And what I found was, for the first time in my life, I was actually able to have awareness of my thoughts, my feelings, my emotional state. I think I had been going through life for 40 years, pretty other than when I was a baby, pretty much unaware. And all the corporate world, and there are so many amazing things about the Western world in which we live, but this constant drive for achievement, external validation, the ego-driven kind of self, which I was living full out, just kind of burned me out. But what I found was, for the first time, I could actually quiet my mind and my brain and get more in touch with my true self and that inner voice in terms of, it tells you what you're meant to be here for and what you're passionate about. So long story short, Unyte Wild Divine kind of serendipitously came to me and came to us. And the broader vision of Unyte is to really help people, connect with their true selves and to help them discover and connect them with the right natural complementary health solutions for them. I mean, obviously traditional Western medicine and, acute medicine can be very helpful and drugs can be very helpful when you need them, as I certainly did during that time. But there's so much other incredible stuff out there that has such great history, and there is more and more research on it that we want to help people uncover. One of those things is meditation. So we found that while Divine had such an incredible history of helping people all around the world and was an early pioneer in combining
totally pioneering it. Yeah.
Combining biofeedback with games. So what we're basically doing now is, I would say modernizing Wild Divine technology to the mobile world, to, more modern devices and more modern games, including virtual reality, making it easier to use and simpler to kind of use across, whether it's your computer, your tablet, your smartphone. We're making a lot of enhancements to the data and the reporting and how people can use it either as consumers or in professional clinics, whether it's psychology clinics focused on anxiety or depression or addiction or ADHD, or hospitals or other places. So we've got a lot going on. We're very close to having the first version of the Unyte foundational interactive meditation product ready. We're probably another month or two away from actually shipping the initial products that we had some incredible backing on from Kickstarter and Indiegogo. And we appreciate everyone's support out there. And we're just excited for us, it's a long journey, obviously, and we're passionate about our purpose. And we see, I see doing this for as long as I'm around on this earth in this lifetime. But this is kind of the beginning steps. Wild Divine had been around for about 15 years. So we're still on kind of our first year and making good progress, but we have a ways to go to get this out there and to help as many people as possible.
Well, it's interesting. Your story is similar to mine, how sometimes the universe takes us at this point of crisis and we just have to change or die. And the technology, this transformational technology obviously helped you and turned you around, maybe even saved your life. And I definitely feel that it saved mine. And yeah, we're in a really, really interesting time because, we have all the traditional understanding of meditation and all the esoteric traditions are available for us. And, we can garner wisdom and techniques and support and just that ancient stream. But now with this technology, it's democratizing this stuff. You can get young kids and people in prison or people, that have just never really thought about any of this stuff and bring them into this deep transformational interior meditative mindfulness practice in ways that were just not possible before.
Yes, I agree. And I think, I'm really excited about all the transformational technology out there and merging together the Eastern traditions and the Western world of technology. I personally have been in and out of technology businesses for almost 20 years. And, my last company I was at was a telecommunications company. So we were kind of proliferating the use of these devices and every device out there, which, has a lot of benefits, but a lot of potential damage and risks. And I think part of the reason a lot of the younger generations are struggling too is because they're always on, they're always connected. And it's created this sort of urgency paradigm. And, a lot of sensory challenges with a lot of the kids these days. So I think what I see here, though, is rather than run away from it or hide from it, and certainly we all practice in our company traditional purist types of meditation too, from Vipassana to all different types, sure, and other Buddhist forms of meditation without devices. And every morning, our first thing we do is we meditate. Sometimes we use our products, sometimes we use your products, sometimes we use others. But I think merging together technology and using it in a positive way can be very powerful because the technology is there, especially young people. My son's 9, teenagers, they're going to be using it. They're growing up with it. So why not use it for good? And, it's funny. Sometimes we'll get criticized, which is fine. We want all feedback to say, well, you're using technology. And that's not really the true spirit of meditation and mindfulness if you think back to the tradition. It's interesting. I had a conversation with one of our guides, Nawang Chachag, who's the Tibetan flutist and studied under the Dalai Lama. And he said, you know what? I'm a big believer in this because especially for young children and teenagers, it really is going to help them bridge the gap between technology and awareness and presence and mindfulness. So that's the way we're seeing this, trying to use technology for good. And there's
Yeah,
so many great companies out there doing that too.
Yeah, and we're going to be going coming up to the Transtech conference in Palo Alto in a couple of weeks from now, and we were there last year, and we're going back, and also because we've been doing all these interviews, with the Spirit Tech Talks. It's been great. We've really come into, instead of just being in our own little thing, we've started to connect with a lot of people, and we've even discussed, working together with our two technologies and making something even better than we have separately. And I found, for the most part, just really high-minded people with great morals and have had a spiritual awakening. They're really putting themselves into this because they really want to make a difference in the world. And I think, it's in the next few years, hopefully, just as it's kind of, most people know that exercise is good. You should work out your whole life and all this stuff. It's pretty much, it's slam dunk, as far as the science across the board and the things that it affects. But I think we're also going to have to make it, instead it's lopsided or this lack of holism, is realize that interior development is also just as important, and we have to spend as much time working on that, or maybe in the beginning we need a little more time to play catch up as we do working on our physical vitality and our physical strength. And I don't know where Doug is, or I can't see you, so please jump right in.
Jason, one of the things that I think is so brilliant about your approach and what you're doing here is you mentioned all these sensory stimuli and the culture of distraction and the way that it's affecting people's attention. And it's something that I've certainly observed in myself before I really deepened into meditation, and observed in the other people around me. So what's so brilliant about what you're doing here is you're making it engaging and stimulating, and you're bringing the immersive experience to it in a way that is entertaining. People might sit around and say to themselves, well, why am I going to sit and do nothing for half an hour when there are all of these other exciting things going on? And so you're bringing that excitement to meditation, which is going to help a lot of people get more deeply into it. I just love it. One of the other things you're doing, and maybe you can comment a little bit about this, is you solve one of the most difficult challenges for beginners too, which is, am I doing this right?
Yes. So yeah, a couple points there. One on the sensory challenges, which is becoming a huge issue in our world. I live it every day. My son, who's 9 and who's doing well and is otherwise healthy, has quite severe anxiety and sensory processing disorder, which was never really heard of before. But so he kind of feels all the stimuli and sensory stimuli out there probably 100 times more than most people. So it's interesting to kind of try to help him and coach him through that and see how that affects him and us. And it's interesting. I used to come home, and if I was angry from a day at work, which would happen a lot of the old days, and I wasn't really aware of that, he would say, "Daddy, why are you so angry?" Literally, when I walked in the house, even though he couldn't see me, he could just feel it. So we are using sensory stimulation in some ways, but I would say most of what we're doing is kind of a vacation for your mind. So that was kind of one of the phrases we use to describe what we're doing. So most of the scenes, as you'll see, are nature-driven scenes. They're quite serene. There is some action usually going on where, based on your breathing and the state of your stress level or your nervous system level, as you'll see, there's a clear score, and the game will progress or change based on that nervous system state. So, the calmer you get, the more the game will progress, and vice versa. So we're using it in a way to stimulate and to give audio and visual feedback to someone so they can really be aware of, wow, when I breathe this way, or when I do shallow breathing, that impacts my score. Or if I turn to talk to someone, or I get distracted, as we all do, and I'm not present, wow, my score drops. Because it really is amazing. I often use our stuff sometimes during the day at work even, and I'm amazed by how, if I just start worrying about something or thinking about something, my score will drop. So we are using sensory stimuli in a clear kind of logical way. And sorry, your second question was?
It was answers the question of, am I doing this right? Which can be so confusing for people who are new to the practice.
Yeah, and that's the other thing we're trying to do is to help people who always said, I want to try to meditate like myself or others, and couldn't really figure it out, or didn't know where to start, or were kind of confused, with a very clear, simple, easy to use interface where we have a breathing indicator that can be customized to your optimal breathing rate. And we're working on some breathing calibration tools to make that really easy to use. And then, as I said, you see your score. And those are the two things you really focus on. So it's quite simple. Obviously, there's reporting data and dashboards available for clinicians and people who really want to dive into the data who are more quantitative. But for most people, simply being aware of your breathing, following the breathing indicator, listening sometimes to some of our well-known guides like Thich Nhat Hanh and John Kabat-Zinn and Sharon Salzberg guide you through these exercises can be quite inspiring, and also confidence building, and that people can do this on their own and be really aware of their physical and mental state.
And I imagine this would just have tremendous potential in getting young people into meditation. And we were talking before the show, we got rolling here about working together and getting into treatment centers and helping people who are coming through the process of getting sober and getting out of the downward spiral of addiction to use this technology, but also with the young folks. I imagine, I heard a father one time, he was talking about trying to teach his son who was pretty ADHD how to meditate. And he said, Spider-Man, the kid was really into Spider-Man, when he's up on the wall, he's looking at the bad guys. He's just completely calm. He's just there.
Yes.
And the little kid would just be like Spider-Man, and the kid learn how to meditate, And if we do that, the point is that maybe we won't have to work so much in treatment centers if we can get kids developing these skill sets so they feel at home in their own skin and they don't have to go compulsively looking something for some substances or whatever to make them feel okay. Tremendous important stuff.
Yeah, and we're seeing a lot of interest from schools, both colleges, universities, grade schools, younger schools. We've partnered with one school recently, the New York School District, to do an innovative program where they have 2 classes of, I think, 35 kids each, who for a whole semester will get credits for learning mindfulness meditation using our tools, tracking their progress, which is really exciting. So that's kicking off soon. We actually... we agree. I mean, the younger we can get to people with this and train them either at schools or at home with their parents, the more resilient they're going to become, the more aware they're going to become. So when they go through suffering and life's challenges, hopefully this will give them some of the tools to actually deal with those more effectively. One other example is with our prior Wild Divine products, there was a great study done in the Netherlands with a hospital group there where they had a high risk, aggressive, anxious teenagers who used our products in conjunction with a more interactive, immersive game that was developed by a third party developer. And the results were quite tremendous when you looked at their reduction in anxiety, aggression, their self-awareness. And there's many other studies out there like that.
Yeah, and to get this technology also into the military and police departments and fire departments and, dare we say, medical schools, where for whatever reason, to be a doctor, you just have to be abused and go through all this stuff and these bloody internships that are just brutal and all this. I don't know, it's this initiation thing, and I've never wrapped my head around it, why that makes you a better healer. But having this technology available for let's just talk about doctors. And training and doctors in their medical career, wouldn't you feel better if you had a doctor who was really calm and really okay and really, processing his knowledge and his wisdom from a deep place instead of just, a stressed out, caffeinated, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been fortunate that Wild Divine was in several leading children's hospitals. So when kids are suffering, going through chemotherapy or other, approaches, this kind of helps them as part of that integrated treatment program. There was also a study done on the older products in the Mayo Clinic with the ER nurses, because as you said, whether it's doctors, nurses, medical students, executives, anyone who's kind of pushing themselves to the limit, this can be really helpful for, and the beauty of this stuff, which I was always amazed at, it obviously takes effort, it takes willpower, but it doesn't take as much as one might think. I mean, even 10, 20 minutes a day can have a material impact. And, a lot of it really, I was always just amazed that just by breathing, and kind of breathing and being a little more present, quieting your mind, can have such a huge impact on your mental health, your physical health, those around you. It's quite amazing.
Doug, do you have a follow-up to that?
Yeah, I was wondering, Jason, this actually is kind of going in a different direction, but I wondered if what is the current kind of leading edge of your technology and the thing that you're most excited about working on next to add to it the greatest benefit in developing biofeedback that you see in the future as it applies to what you're doing with the games and the VR?
Yeah. I think the coolest thing that we're working on with, I think, really interesting application either for consumers or clinicians and patients is the combination of biofeedback. So, this is kind of the prototype of our new device called the IOM 2, which is a very simple kind of small, you can see it beside a cell phone, device that you simply clip it on your ear or your finger. Eventually it can be a full wearable, but the first version will be a simple clip on. You don't even really know it's on. And then that combined with virtual reality, we feel is kind of more of the cutting edge of where we're going. Now, obviously, virtual reality, not a lot of consumers have virtual reality headsets yet. So we're seeing it, for more forward kind of innovative consumers, but plus for certain types of clinicians, let's say addiction clinics where, oftentimes, these patients have severe anxiety, they're fearful, they've had traumatic experiences. So to be in a nice quiet room, a relaxation room with, a virtual reality headset on, noise canceling headphones on, maybe with some great frequencies being, funneled in to help calm the nervous system, and an immersive game experience to keep them kind of engaged and motivated in a beautiful nature setting. We kind of see that as having a lot of interesting clinical applications for different types of patients in different types of locations. I think other than that, longer term, if I think of the Unyte's vision where we go, it really is, more about personalized, health and wellness. And I think, it's kind of sad in some ways, although there's incredible innovation happening now around personalized treatments in healthcare, that other industries have even been more advanced than healthcare and personalization to date, other technology industries and sectors. But we see an opportunity beyond even the biofeedback that we're using here, which is heart rate variability and galvanic skin response, to really understand more about what's going on in someone's body and their mind, and then translate that into, recommendations, specific types of programs that people can utilize that will have a beneficial effect on their lives. And, that can be obviously meditation or mindfulness. So think of a more personalized experience based on your specific nervous system state. Everything that comes back to you can be customized and personalized to you, which is a little bit future thinking for us. But even beyond meditation, really understanding all the various elements. If you look at a lot of disease these days, there's some great research and programs happening trying to prevent Alzheimer's, other chronic diseases. The combination of meditation, diet, supplements, other types of things in a personalized way can be quite powerful. So we're excited about that longer term, but obviously we have a lot to do to get our initial products out and make sure our customers are really happy with those and it's working for them and helping them.
Yeah. So any of you VCs that are listening to this, if you want to help out with this noble thing that might just take over, the world in a really good way, kick some oxygen into the project. And I was also thinking about, just post-op, post-procedure recovery in hospitals. Hospitals are not the happiest places to be. You're all there. There's a television and you're sitting there with tubes and waiting. I would imagine it would be such a just efficacious and money saving and time saving and suffering saving a way to help people relax. And so the body gets into these states, it just heals better. Your stress is not taking you out and keeping you sick or delaying the process of getting better.
Yeah, and we're talking to various groups about different studies and programs that we want to implement once our new products are launched. One in Toronto, for instance, a cardiology unit at a leading hospital wants to run a program doing research and piloting using our products for the cardiologists, so the doctors, the nurses, and the patients post procedure, whether you get a stent or you have a cardiological surgery, heart surgery. That would be pretty cool to see, because that whole environment is quite stressful for everyone.
No, heal the healers, get those guys going. And, we've been talking with various treatment programs that said, okay, this is not just for the identified patients, that has to be the counselors and the coaches and the people, the line people that are there. Because, dealing with addicts is a bit stressful, and it takes a lot of people out. You can't sustain it for too long, just like being on the front lines of the protest movement now, and all the stuff that we're confronting in the world, environmentally, politically, racially, ethically, all this stuff. If you don't have a way to come back home and renew, you're just not going to be in it for the long term, and you're going to kind of crash and burn. And so instead of being part of the solution that's coming forth, you're going to be more the problem. And so if we're going to do good, we have to treat ourselves really well and get ourselves to the highest level that we can of our own capacity. I just want to read some comments here. We have a good friend who credits Wild Divine with finally being successful in meditating regularly. That's a huge thing. And I have a degree in transpersonal psychology, graduate degree, and I know all about this stuff. And man, I had the hardest time sustaining a meditation practice for years until I found technology that really rooted me. And as you were saying earlier, that people start feeling the results very quickly. So one of my mentors and heroes, Ken Wilber, he said that he had to meditate 2 hours a day for 5 years before he felt anything. Now, most of us are not that heroic to do something for 2 hours a day before feel the results, stick with it. But he said he just felt in his soul it was something he just had to do, and then then it happened. But now we can get there so much more quickly, and sometimes some of this technology does things that just traditional meditation doesn't even get to. So it's really interesting. And I want to read another one. There was a study here done here in Oz. We actually have somebody from Oz. How's the scarecrow and those guys? Anyway, I'm not sure what that means. With ADHD children, which had great results also.
Yes.
So you have people who have experienced this stuff.
Yeah, we were lucky. We were shocked that we actually had hired a researcher to do a full literature review once we acquired Wild Divine, and we found over 100 mentions in different research articles, including about 15 or so that were direct Wild Divine treatment and interventions, including ADHD and many others, a lot of them done in children. So that's great. And we do have a full kind of 33-page document if anyone does want to see. I saw here someone asked about more studies. We do have that we can provide to you if you come to the Indiegogo page. It's a link off of that page. Otherwise, if you email us at support@unyte.com, unyt.com, we can send it to you. But there's a lot of good research out there. Oh, Oz is Australia, which makes sense.
Right on, Australia.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I joined the call late, so you probably explained how to do this, but I'm bursting in. So I'm Peter Capper. I'm in the suburbs of Philadelphia, and I've spent my life working with kids and teenagers, and find that I had the Wild Divine stuff of late, and for 10 years maybe, had a lot of technological difficulties getting it working, and now I'm eagerly awaiting your new product. But yes. One of the things that is very striking to me in using the games that I currently have is that they're not really designed for working with the modern teenager. They're all that's kind of zen and they need to be is there a plan to get with much more kind of video game kind of visuals and sounds that isn't so kind of new agey, because yes. I think the technology is hugely exciting, I think, for working with kids, but like the the actual focus of the games right now isn't, you know, what my audience of, you know, spoiled suburban, you know, Philadelphia young people. So that's my question.
Yes. Well, thank you, Peter. Appreciate it. First, I lived in Philadelphia for 5 years before I moved back to Canada, so I know the area well, and it's a great place. So yes, so when we first bought Wild Divine, we actually did a big research study. We almost had 1,000 people respond. We talked to dozens of clinicians like yourself. We got a lot of good feedback and a lot of critical feedback, which is also good in my mind, because any feedback is good. And that was one of the big pieces of feedback. It was, you know, for different types of segments of people or patients or customers or different types of conditions that people might be struggling with, you know, the games don't necessarily fully always meet those needs. And so we're 100% aware of that, which is good. The plan, and we have a very thorough kind of content and game roadmap. The only thing is, and I know it's hard to be patient after all these years, but I would just ask for a little bit of patience, because and I never used to have any patience, which is probably one of the reasons I had some health issues, but I'm trying to have a little more patience now. But what we're doing systematically is updating some of the older Wild Divine content, because, you know, a lot of people do like that, and it was kind of the lowest hanging fruit. Then we're going to start adding on other types of games and content, both for teenagers and younger people. Some of those we will develop, some of those we've also been in discussions with other game developers who have a lot of interesting games that are already geared towards teens. In fact, there were a couple developed in the past that we will look to update with our own program. One was called Dojo, developed by a great nonprofit in the US called Game Desk, which is was really helping young people with science and technology education. And that was a very teenage-oriented game. That was the game I mentioned that you might not have heard about, that the study was done in Australia, in the Netherlands, on anxiety and aggression in teens, and the results were very strong. So we're going to look to update some of those other games that are already out there that fit better with the teenage demographic, and then add on more of those. The reality is that will have to come in 2018. Whether it's early, mid 2018, we're not exactly sure, but it's on the roadmap. We just have to get the initial stuff done and do it in a way that's really high quality. There were some great things about Wild Divine. I mean, some of the more recent products did struggle at times from technology limitations and the way they were built. So that's why we're also spending a lot of time and energy and funds on making sure the new device is much higher quality. The electronics in it are higher quality. It's actually able to be used with different types of sensors in the future, not just heart rate variability or galvanic skin response, but other things potentially. But we really need to nail this and get this right, and then build upon it in the future. Because once we have this and the whole platform we're building, adding on games is just a matter of creating more and more content, which is a lot of our backgrounds on this team. So yeah, I appreciate the question, the feedback. Happy to chat with you too, one-on-one at some point, because we'd love to hear your feedback about your specific patients and your needs and the challenges you've had. And also what types of games you might find most interesting. I've also had that feedback from many people, including Dr. Richard Gevirtz, the biofeedback kind of guru out in San Diego, and others. So we're working on it.
Yeah, great question, Peter. Thank you. And also just to bring, the importance of this, and we don't want to wait till next year, quite frankly. No, we want it now. But
so do I, trust me.
The leading cause of death among teenagers in the United States is suicide. When you think about cars and drugs and, guns and all the crazy things that are going on, it's self-annihilation that is the number one cause of death. And so that means, and we got some work to do. We really, really need to get this stuff out. So,
Jason, I wanted to ask more about the current games that are available and what some of those offerings are like, and whether you have a particular favorite.
Yeah. So there's, it's a great question. There are a total of about 100 unique kind of individual experiences, what I would call them. So either a game or a guided meditation. And Some people like playing the game, some people like having guides, some people like both. And those 100 experiences are combined into, 8 or so different programs. So if you think of different software programs or apps, so there's kind of different things for everyone. If people just want games and not necessarily the full-blown kind of teenage-style games that Peter mentioned, there are specific game programs which have, let's say, 12 games in one program. There's another one that has, 20. You're renovating a villa that has been, dilapidated, and as you go through the villa, there are probably 25 different game events in there. Then there are some pure guided meditation programs, like Relaxing Rhythms 1, where it's a 15-step program where you have guided meditations by a lot of famous, well-known guides and gurus. And then you have practice events where you're basically more practicing and watching the graph of your resonance score and your heart rate variability. So it's a little more guided meditation heavy. My favorite is actually, well, I have two favorites. One is Relaxing Rhythms 2, which is one of our kind of feature titles, which has a it's about 10 steps. So it's a nice 10-step program that kind of takes you through a journey. And each step has a guided meditation, which you can skip if you want, and then a game event. And then that's quite easy and clear to go through, whether you're a consumer or whether you're a professional, kind of taking someone through a program or a protocol. I also like the virtual reality game, just because even though you don't necessarily want to be in virtual reality all the time, it's a little bit more immersive. And as you look around and you kind of explore, you really feel like you're there. And one thing I've seen with all the latest brain research from great scientists out there is your brain doesn't necessarily know if you're in a virtual reality environment that seems realistic, if it's real or if it's perception. It doesn't really know if it's the present, the future, or the past in some way. So it actually can have a lot of impact, positive impact on your physical state, your bodily state, if you're in that kind of relaxing setting.
Yeah, no,
can
no
also
kidding.
have challenges too in other ways, but yeah.
Hey, Jason, could you give us a sample, a screenshot of some of these environments that you're working with and what it would actually what it looks like?
Yeah, sure. So I'll give you a couple quick video samples from the new virtual reality experience called 5 Forces, and it was built based on kind of the 5 classical elements of the universe. So I'll show you a couple, just kind of snippets of the videos. And keep in mind, these can work with virtual reality headsets, or if you don't have that, they also can work just on your desktop computer or your tablet or smartphone too. So I will share my screen, and you should be able to hear the audio, but just to set it up, the first one is you're on a boat and there's a storm that hits, and you'll see your resonance score on the screen and the breathing indicator. You follow the breathing indicator, you'll see your resonance score hopefully increase. As the score increase, the waves settle down, the sky turns blue, and you can navigate to shore. That's just one example. The second one you'll see is once you're at shore, you enter into a courtyard. There's a bunch of rocks there, and as you get into a resonant state and your score increases, the rocks will assemble and pile up. And those are just 2 examples of many experiences, but I should give you a taste of at least the visuals. Okay, sorry, 1 second. Okay, can you see the screen?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll let this video play. I might fast forward a bit, but this is the beginning of your boat journey with a heavy storm and waves. You'll see on the left bottom your heart rate and your resonance score. That's from 0 to 100. 100% is basically reflective of a full parasympathetic nervous system state based on your breathing and your heart rate variability. A 0 score is a full sympathetic nervous system state, give or take. So here you go.
Navigating turbulent waters to get to a desired destination. In order to calm the rising water and progress to the shore, you must first learn to calm yourself. Learning to meditate by managing your breathing is a great way to achieve this. Following the breathing indicator increases your score. As your score increases, the storm will subside, helping you reach your destination both in this demo and in life. Congratulations on navigating yourself to calmer waters. Sit back and enjoy the ride to shore.
And then you can see at the end, there's always a clear, all of our user experience and interfaces have been standardized now. So you can see there's, shows your average heart rate, your average resonance score, the time spent. And there's a difficulty level that you can adjust as well to make it easier or harder for yourself or your patients. And then all this data gets stored. If you want it to be stored, you don't have to. It can get stored in our dashboard where you or your clinician can access that and track progress over time around usage and scores. So that's a big improvement too, because the old Wild Divine didn't really have any tracking in that way. The other example I can just show quickly, 1 second here. Oh, sorry. So this is just another one in the courtyard, an example of stacking rocks. You can see here, this is the virtual reality one, so the breathing indicator and the resonance score are superimposed on the screen, so it's part of the experience. And some of these have negative feedback too. So, if your score is increasing, the rocks will stack, you'll make progress. If your score goes down, they'll fall apart again in some cases, which some people like, some people don't like. So we've mixed that into some of the games. But once again, these are just two examples of some of the more modern experiences. They still are very nature driven, some sensory stimulation, but not too much. These aren't the full types of kind of teenager games, although we do find a lot of teens in hospitals and schools and even prisons, like them. Although certainly they say, hey, can you get us some shooter games or things like that? And we'll probably go towards more teenage games. I don't know if we'll go all the way to shooter type games because that's kind of against the values of the company, but we've definitely had a lot of requests for that. But these are just two examples of many, many experiences that we're working on and developing. I think you're on mute.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm muted. No, not.
Okay,
can you hear me?
Back. Yeah.
Okay. And you have a guru, you have a teacher that teaches you how to find your superhuman powers. You have an adventure and you have to do this. Maybe you don't shoot, but you can save somebody from falling off a building or this or that as you begin to master your inner skills. And, all of this Marvel and DC and all this stuff is all dealing with kind of nerdy, kind of weird, normal people who, for some reason, begin to develop these gifts. And I think it's a really good story. And it's a reality story too, because I think we really are called to develop ourselves in that way. And now that we're understanding more about this, we can just push what it means to be a human and what it means to be alive and what it means to be authentically happy and what it means to find your gifts and give it back to the world. And how do we get into these creative flow states and how do we love ourselves and how do we let go of the trauma? I mean, there's just so much that can be done with this. It's just extraordinary.
Yes.
And dare I say professional athletes, and all these, I mean, any high performance, anything, musician, athletes, art, economics, business, leadership. I mean, anything that requires a human brain functioning at a high level. Yes. There it is.
Agreed.
Oh. Did we have any other questions or feedback from any of the audience or not audience?
We have a lot of questions coming in now.
Awesome.
Doug, do you want to maybe read some of them?
Sure. We have a question here. Do you have a feature, or are you working on developing a feature where more than one person could be in the same scene at the same time, meditating together, for example? That's a really cool idea.
Yes, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. I think that was Nirav Desai. So it's interesting. Two things. We don't have it, imminently coming out, but we are thinking a lot about that. Wild Divine, we actually have a patent, and it's not all about patents and technology. We do have an actual patent on multiplayer biofeedback experiences. And so we've thought a lot about that. In fact, Wild Divine had an experience, which is still live, but a bit out of date, called Wild Divine Online. We're not currently updating that because, as I mentioned, we really need to get the core Unyte products out first, but we will look to have some sort of immersive multiplayer experience in the future, because then you get the benefit of obviously meditating together and seeing each other's, trying to raise everyone's resonance score up, which can be quite collectively helpful.
No, and when we meditate together, whether we're doing traditional meditation or using the brain entrainment stuff like iAwake, there is a field that is created. There's a power. You can feel the participation of other people. It's like playing your guitar by yourself or playing with other, people in an ensemble or a band or something. There's a different type of different energy. It's very powerful.
Even just scientifically, the mirror neurons, help create that positive state.
What else we got, Doug?
Let's see. And mention of the Wild Divine Online. Here, really loved the sense of community and enjoyed meditating in groups. This is from Patricia. And, I really agree with that and what you guys just said too. Meditation doesn't have to be this solitary image of a lone monk sitting alone in a cave. For me, it really brought out my ability to connect with others. So that sense of community is just really powerful, and I'm glad to hear you're working on it.
I am seeing a few questions on neurofeedback and biofeedback, and I guess just to quickly address that, if you don't mind. So what we're doing is what I'd call more traditional biofeedback at this point. We may have neurofeedback devices in the future, but biofeedback in terms of measuring your nervous system state through heart rate variability, your physiological and emotional state through galvanic skin response. And from what we've seen with all the research out there and a lot of the researchers we've spoken to and practitioners, heart rate variability is a very direct correlation to the state of your nervous system. So whereas EEG and other types of devices, I saw a mention of EEG, is also quite powerful. And obviously, if you're breathing and doing any of these things, it will correlate in some way. We feel like this is a really good foundation to build from with biofeedback. I am a big believer in neurofeedback as well. I think to some of the points here, there is more training required for professionals who want to do neurofeedback. You're actually measuring brain patterns and blood flow to the brain and brain abnormalities. I was actually just at a amazing two-day conference with Dr. Norman Doidge in Toronto, who is a pioneer in neuroplasticity and wrote the book, The Brain's Way of Healing, which is a wonderful book. And he talked a lot about quantitative EEGs and how, while people used to think that if you had challenges or over connectivity or under connectivity in certain parts of your brain and it couldn't be changed, most of the brain actually can be changed. It is more plastic than we think, as you guys know. And so I think neurofeedback can play a critical role in many different conditions, even some of the ones we talked about earlier with sensory processing, anxiety, etc. We're not offering that at this point, but it can be quite complementary. And I know certain practitioners offer both neurofeedback and biofeedback. But what we're really doing right now is teaching people through seeing their nervous system state, becoming more aware, and learning relaxation and mindfulness techniques to learn how to be more calm and more peaceful and more resilient, and all the benefits that go along with that.
So is this, what we've been seeing, is this available now? You can go to the website and order it and...
So great question. So it is available to order right now. We're a couple months away from shipping these devices, and with all the games and everything else is done, we're just finalizing the device and making sure the quality of the data is highly accurate, works across all different types of people, etc. So that's taking a little longer than expected, but yeah, the easiest way to stay in touch with us or order is to go to unyte.com, unyte.com. You can either sign up for our email newsletter there, which comes every couple of weeks and has a lot of research and information on meditation and mindfulness. Or you can click an order link there to go to our Indiegogo page, where you can actually pre-order. The lowest price on the page is $219 for a package and a bundle, which includes hardware and some software. That's about 30% off the regular price. And there are other packages there for clinicians if they want 10 or 30 or more devices, 5, 10, 30 as well. So that's the best place to do it, and to keep in touch with us. And we're working as hard as we can in a mindful, present way to get everything launched. And once we have the foundation out there, it's really going to be an exciting journey to add on to this over the several next coming months and years.
Awesome. Jason, it's so good that you took this technology that was a really noble endeavor and really helped a lot of people. It's so pioneering. Wild Divine was like, just way out there. And the world's kind of catching up, but you've taken on this thing to advance it and bring it into this new millennium. And just the very fact that you have the VR with the biofeedback, because everybody's talking about that, but I haven't seen anybody who's quite done it yet in that sense. So this is really cutting edge stuff, and it's just going to get it's just going to get better and better as we figure it out and we work with it and we get everybody's feedback and we put more energy and into creating these technologies. Extraordinary stuff. We're about running. Is there any other maybe pressing questions or something? Like we're just about out of time. So Doug, do you have anything to?
Well, we have one here. Any plans to bring back the original Wild Divine?
Yes. Once again, that is on our roadmap because we've had so much passionate feedback from fans of Wild Divine over 15 years across 40 different countries, and we hear from you all, and we're very excited. We're trying to take the best of what Wild Divine had and make it even better. Just the reality is to rebuild. Even though we have a lot of technology experience, my team and I, to rebuild some of those original titles like The Passage and Sunrealm are quite heavy lifting endeavors because they were built so long ago on really old technology. If it was as simple as updating it, we would do it, and I would love to have it out now. But it is in the plan for 2018. I just ask for people to be patient with us as we get everything else out there, and then we'll start to relaunch each of those one by one.
Yeah, the original
some beautiful experiences.
They were really beautiful. I mean, it was HD before HD was cool. I mean, they were just really, really glorious landscapes and structures, and all the stuff you'd move through was so well done.
We have them here. We have some of those old boxes. We have all the old devices. We play them here. We're trying to get them, working. It's just, I won't go into technologically how challenging that is, but that's why we're here, and that's what we're going to do.
Well, absolutely. Anything as we wrap this up that you'd just like to leave us with, Jason, before we sign out here?
No, I'm just very grateful to have had the opportunity to do this and appreciate everyone's time. And we're just here to try to help as many people as possible and build a unique type of business and culture where we're trying to connect people with their true selves and the great types of things out there to help them in their lives and their families' lives. So very appreciative, and feel free to keep in touch and reach out to us any way you want through the website or otherwise.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jason. Also, a shout out to Pam, my wife, Pam Dupuy, and Luis Santos in the Philippines, who are the guys behind the scene, the producers that really made this all possible. And Doug and I are kind of talking heads at this point. And this has been just fantastic, Jason. So thank you so much, and very inspiring. And just let us know how we can support you in this, okay? And so I really like to get behind this. It's good stuff.
Thank you, will do. And I also appreciate the I Awake products because I do use them quite a bit and find it helps me get into a pretty calm state. So keep up the great work with what you're doing. Thank you.
You're welcome.